כי לקח טוב נתתי לכם, תורתי אל תעזבו. עץ חיים היא למחזיקים בה, ותומכה מיושר ירחיה יכן עולם בכל נתיבותיה שלום. השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה. חדש חדש ימינו, חדש ימינו כקדם.
Fabulous. Oh, that was nice. My goodness, so nice to hear. Thank you, Gary. Wow.
Tip of the hat.
Thanks. Oh, Myrna's here, and Cynthia, and Annie, and Bracha, Dr. Mike, Maureen. Where did Cynthia go? Cynthia. All right, we left off at an amazing, amazing part of the Torah, right? Does everyone remember where we left off? Where's Joseph? Joseph.
Was it Joseph in Egypt?
Yes. He's in jail. He's in jail in Egypt. Before we even start, I wanted to bring this one point up because it kind of sort of blew my mind a little bit, but our best rabbi, Rabbi Alon, it's so funny because he's talking about this portion. And one of the things that he says, Rabbi Alon, is like, okay, Joseph was in the jail, and everybody, he essentially was running the jail, pretty much, except he couldn't leave. But Rabbi Alon says, well, why didn't he just tell one of these guys who was leaving jail, if he's going up to Canaan, tell my dad I'm in Egypt or whatever? And I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. Why not? And then Rabbi Alon says, Joseph didn't want to send any bad report about his brothers to his father.
He still didn't want to do that.
I'm like, what? But he told on him before. I don't know. I'm like,
yeah, before he got thrown into the pit.
Before he got thrown into that. There you go. Maybe there's something to that. Anyway, something to think about. Another way to look at this wild story. Yeah, I love this story. It's so excellent.
Wasn't it Potiphar's wife who caused Joseph to be put in jail?
Yes.
Because she was trying to have him make love to her, and he didn't want to be part of it.
That's right. That's right.
So
he ended up in jail. Yeah.
It's sexual harassment.
Yeah, that's right. It was. But he ended up in jail because God wanted him to be there. This is all evolving as the story is preordained.
Yeah. God had his plan.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Okay. At the end of 2 years' time, Pharaoh had a dream. There he was, standing by the Nile, when 7 cows came up out of the Nile, handsome and fat. They grazed among the reeds, and now 7 other cows came up after them from the Nile, repulsive and gaunt. They stood beside the other cows at the bank of the Nile. The cows that were repulsive and gaunt then ate the cows that were handsome and fat, and Pharaoh woke up. He fell asleep, and he dreamt a second time. This time, 7 ears of grain were growing on a single stalk. They were healthy and good. And then 7 ears of grain, thin, scorched by the east wind, grew after them. The 7 ears of grain that were thin and scorched by the east wind then swallowed the 7 ears of grain that were healthy and full. And Pharaoh woke up. Behold, it was a dream. In the morning, his spirit was troubled. He put out a call for all the soothsayer priests and sages of Egypt. Pharaoh related his dream to them, but no one could interpret them for Pharaoh. The chief cupbearer then spoke to Pharaoh, saying, "This day I must acknowledge my sins." Pharaoh had grown angry at his servants, so he put me under guard in the house of the captain of the guard, me and the chief baker. We dreamt a dream on a single night, he and I, each dream of ours with its own meaning. Now there with us was a Hebrew lad, a slave of the captain of the guard. When we related our dreams to him, he interpreted for us, interpreting each one's dream according to its own meaning. And as he interpreted for us, so it came to be. Pharaoh restored me to my position, and him Pharaoh hanged. So Pharaoh sent to summon Joseph. They hurried him from the pit. He shaved, changed his clothing, and came to Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I dreamt a dream, and there is no one to interpret it. But I have heard this about you. You have but to hear a dream to interpret it." Joseph answered Pharaoh by saying, "Not I, it is God who will account for Pharaoh's well-being." Oh, but you know what amused me? That he actually went first and shaved and took care of himself before he appeared in front of the Pharaoh.
Yeah.
Where were his shaving tools?
I have no idea. Maybe he got them in.
I know where they came. Hey, by the way, I know where they came from. They came from Gillette.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Exactly,
that's
my
right.
And did he have special lotion afterwards so he'd smell good?
Yes, he was called Gary.
Yeah,
That's right.
Gary Gillette. But I love it. This is the first time we hear.
Joseph speak.
Is he speaking or no? Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Oh yeah." So Joseph answered, "Not I. It is God who will account." He doesn't say anything about like, "Oh yeah, by the way, Potiphar's wife threw me in jail. Oh, by the way, this all happened to me."
Anyway, even if he said it, he would not be believed. It would have been worse.
All right. Yeah, you're right.
You have to know women. Come on. Pharaoh then spoke to Joseph. "In my dream, I stood on the bank of the Nile. And lo, 7 cows went up out of the river. Fat and handsome, they grazed among the reeds. And lo, 7 other cows, poor, truly repulsive, emaciated, came up after them. Never have I seen any so repulsive in all the land of Egypt. The emaciated and repulsive cows then ate up the first cows, the fat ones. Once they had digested them, one could not tell that they had digested them, rather. They were as repulsive as before, whereupon I woke. Then in my other dream, I saw that 7 ears of grain were growing on one stalk, full and good. Then sprouting after them were 7 ears of grain, dried up, thin, scorched by the east wind. The 7 thin ears of grain swallowed up the 7 goodly ears. But when I told the soothsayer priest, none could explain it to me. So Joseph then said to Pharaoh, Pharaoh's dream is one. What God is doing, God has revealed to Pharaoh. The 7 goodly cows are 7 years, and the 7 goodly ears of grain are 7 years. It is all one dream. The 7 cows coming up after them were emaciated, repulsive, are 7 years. And the 7 ears of grain that were thin and scorched by an east wind, they were 7 years of famine. This is the very thing I told Pharaoh, what God is doing. God has shown to Pharaoh, look, 7 years are coming of great plenty in all the land of Egypt. But 7 years of famine are coming up after them, and all the plenty in the land of Egypt will be forgotten. The famine will consume the land. The plenty will no longer be known in the land because of the famine that will follow. So harsh will it be. Pharaoh's dream was repeated 2 times because the matter has been fixed by God, and God is making haste to accomplish it.
Fantastic. Any comments?
Well,
yeah,
I
I have a thought.
All right, Braca, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a thought. Does anybody feel like Joseph is going or has gone through a process of maturity during the time in jail.
Which
He's
is
going to
Perhaps
answer
that's the reason
Pharaoh
he's
in a
in
very
jail.
different way that he used to speak before.
Yeah.
We see a development.
Maybe that's the reason God had him put in jail so that he could have time to reflect.
And this
And
is
to
why he
mature.
didn't want to send to his family any bad reports, because this is the level of maturity he has now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And before he sinned, but now he's a different man. He's developed.
you're
There-
right.
There's no question about that. And but this way though, God has also given, I mean, Joseph realizes that he was selected by God to do something important, and this was the important thing he had to do. And he recognizes it, and that's why God let him understand what was happening.
But
And he also had a way of, I think he probably knew deep in his heart that his family would show up at some point. He had to have known that because they were going to come from all over the then known world.
because of the famine.
Right.
Right.
Well, and I think that we need to remember that one of the things that Joseph said is, you guys are going to be bowing before me. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
That's what he told
Back.
That's right.
and
And
it did happen.
and it did happen.
And it did happen.
And I don't know, it's so hard for us. We can interpret that in so many different ways, because it's like he got the message, right? He got that message that they are going to bow down to me. And we don't know what his tone was, you know? We don't know if it was a real like sarcastic tone or if it was just like a matter of fact tone. Look at guys, you guys are going to bow down to me. Or how would you ever, how could it not be somewhat sarcastic at least? But it's the truth. It happens, right? It happened. And
This
it
is the
was
kind of thing that would have irritated his brothers again, or more so.
Yeah.
I mean, this is really pouring salt on the wound. You're going to, bow to me.
yeah.
That's not so good. But that was part of his immaturity. Now we see his maturity.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah. Good.
Or is he just relaying God's message ultimately?
Well, the whole
Because
thing was, as I said,
that
was
came to
God's
be.
plan.
Yeah.
Right, but
That's what I'm
aren't
saying.
we supposed
so was
to
Joseph
manage?
being?
Go ahead, Gary. Why doesn't Gary start and then Brock?
No, I'm saying is well, I mean, he was young. Like the way he relayed the dreams might have sounded, but the fact is, he was relaying something that was going to happen. So it wasn't really just, he wasn't. It might have upset them, but what he was telling them was something that was going to be. You didn't know it at the time, but now we know that it did happen.
No, I have a problem though. I can understand the cattle eating the cattle, the lean swallowing up. I'm having a problem with the sheaves of wheat or whatever, eating the sheaves of wheat. That's making them.
Well, it's a metaphor.
I know, but all I could think of was it really is a metaphor, because you could never see. I mean, I could deal with it with the animals. I can't deal with the wheat.
Right. And maybe it's because, well, I mean, I don't know how I can help you with you, but it might also have been like the symbol of the animals. The animals are going to have a famine, and also the fields are going to have a famine, right? I mean, maybe if there was just a disease in the animals.
It's actually saying, be prepared. There are 7 years of plenty, and 7 years will follow that are famine. And that part of it, it's just the image of, all right, maybe I'm making too big a deal out of it. I'm trying to be too literal.
That's okay. That's okay. Hey, we're all open for discussion. Anything you wanted to add, Brock? I'm sorry. I think you might.
No, it's just that I think that he was so trusting when he was young that he didn't realize that the brothers would not take well what he had said.
Mm-hmm.
Because even if he had had those dreams, we don't tell all of our dreams that we have. We are careful. We are in maturity. We know that what we say is significant, and we have to understand to whom we're saying what we're saying. And he didn't at the time. Now he's changed.
Yeah. Good point. Cynthia, would you like to continue, or does anyone else? Cynthia?
Sure. Let Pharaoh now select a man who is discerning and wise and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh act and appoint administrators over the land, and let him take 1/5 of the produce of the land of Egypt during the 7 years of plenty. Have them gather up all the surplus food of these good years that are coming, and let them store up grain in the cities under Pharaoh's control and put it under guard. The food will then be a reserve for the land during the 7 years of famine that will prevail in the land of Egypt. Thus the land will not perish through famine. This advice seemed good to Pharaoh and his officials. And Pharaoh said to his officials, "Is there anyone like this to be found, a man with the Spirit of God in him?" Pharaoh then said to Joseph, "Since God has made all this known to you, there is no one as discerning and wise as you. You shall be in charge of my household, and all my people shall obey your word. Only I, the throne, shall be greater than you." And Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Observe, I have placed you in charge of the entire land of Egypt." Pharaoh removed his signet ring from his hand and put it on Joseph's hand. He dressed him in linen trappings and placed the gold chain of office around his neck. He gave him his viceroy's chariot to ride. They cried out, "Royal steward," before him. He placed him in charge of all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh now said to Joseph, "I am Pharaoh, and without you none shall lift hand or foot in all the land of Egypt." Pharaoh called Joseph Paneah, and gave him Asenath, daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, as a wife. Thus Joseph came to be in charge of the land of Egypt. When Joseph began to serve Pharaoh, king of Egypt, he was 30 years old. Joseph left Pharaoh's presence and traversed the whole land of Egypt. In the 7 years of plenty, the land produced to overflowing. He gathered all the surplus food there was in the land of Egypt from the 7 years. He placed food in the cities. The food that came from the cities' surrounding fields he placed in its midst. Thus Joseph heaped up grain as plentiful as the sands of the sea, until he left off measuring, for it was beyond measure. 2 sons were born to Joseph before the years of famine arrived, born to him by Asenath, daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. Joseph named the firstborn son Manasseh, "For God has made me forget all the troubles I endured in my father's house." And he named the second one Ephraim, "For God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction." The 7 years of plenty that prevailed in the land of Egypt came to an end, and the 7 years of famine began as Joseph had foretold. There was famine in all the lands, but all over the land of Egypt there was food. Yet all the land of Egypt was starving, so that the people cried out to Pharaoh for food. Pharaoh said to all Egypt, "Go to Joseph and do whatever he tells you." The famine had spread across the land, so Joseph opened up all that was in the stores, and he provided for Egypt, for the famine had gained strength in the land of Egypt. And all the lands came to Egypt to buy provisions from Joseph, for the famine had taken hold in every land. When Jacob realized that there was grain for sale in Egypt, Jacob said to his sons, "Why are you staring at each other?" He said, "Look, I have heard there are provisions for sale in Egypt. Go down that way and buy us provisions from there, that we may live and not die." So Joseph's brothers went down, 10 of them, to buy grain from Egypt. But Jacob did not send Benjamin, that's Joseph's full brother, with his brothers, for he thought, lest a deadly mishap befall him.
Go ahead, Gary. What's up?
When Jacob says, "Why are you staring at each other?"
That's
You know how, like, in any situation when an important task has to be done, and everybody's standing around, "Oh, well, I thought you were going to." Oh, no,
They don't know who's going to do it.
No, you, right. Well, that's part of it. You meant it that way, but also, maybe the brothers were hesitant. Maybe they even, like, the possibility of going to Egypt, like knowing that maybe they might encounter their little brother that they.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's like
Possibility.
they were controlled by their fear. I
Yeah.
mean, originally it was their hatred, but now it's their fear, which lasts until after Jacob is dead. They're still afraid.
That's a good point. And I like it too because it feels like an Archie Bunker line. Why are you staring at each other? Get out of here, meathead! You just go.
It's more like Moe of the Three Stooges. What's the matter with you?
It's great. I mean, it's to me when I first read this story years and years ago. I remember thinking like, who put this modern story in this the first book of the Bible? It's like this modern epic adventure, and I'm like, what is
It's
this
amazing,
story?
isn't
It's
it?
an amazing story.
Remember
Yes,
what
it
they
will.
say, there's nothing new under the sun.
And that is true.
Yeah. Does anyone want to pick it up at number 5?
Why don't you read it, Michael?
Oh, okay. I will.
Okay.
Israel's sons came to buy provisions in the midst of those who came, for the famine prevailed over the whole land of Canaan. Now Joseph was the one who held sway over the land. He was the one selling provisions to all the people of the land. Joseph's brothers, therefore, came and bowed down to him with their faces to the ground. When Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them, but he pretended to be a stranger to them and spoke roughly to them. He said to them, "Where have you come from?" They said, "From the land of Canaan to buy food." Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him.
Oh, yeah.
Joseph then remembered the dreams he had dreamt about them, and he said to them, "You are spies who have come to see the land's nakedness." "No, my lord," they said to him, "your servants have come to buy food. We are all of us sons of the same man. We are honest. Your servants have never been spies." He said to them, "No, indeed. It is the land's nakedness that you have come to see." They then said, "Your servants are 12 brothers, sons of a man in the land of Canaan. The youngest is with our father right now, and one is no more." But Joseph said to them, It is as I have said to you, you are spies. This is how you shall be put to the test. As Pharaoh lives, you shall not get out of this unless your youngest brother comes here. Send forth one of you, and let him fetch your brother, while the rest of you are confined. Thus your words will be put to the test to see whether you are being truthful. If not, as Pharaoh lives, you are indeed spies. And he placed them under guard for 3 days. On the 3rd day, Joseph said to them, "Do this and live. I am a God-fearing man. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers be confined in your place of custody, while the rest of you go bring provisions to relieve the starvation of your families. Then bring your youngest brother to me, and let your words be proven trustworthy, so that you do not die." They went to do this. The brothers said to one another, "Oh, we are being punished on account of our brother. We saw his soul's distress when he pleaded with us, but we didn't listen. On that account, this distress has come upon us." Reuben now responded to them, saying, "Didn't I say to you, do not sin against the lad? But you wouldn't listen, and so his blood payment, see, it has come due." Wow. That's a pretty amazing thing there.
But Joseph, as mean as he seemed to them, again, because like Racha said, he matured more. And instead of saying, "Ha ha, here you guys are, I'm Joseph. You guys are coming bowing down to me like I told you in the dream." Instead, he treated them the way he did. But that leads to the fact that, you never know when somebody's treating you a certain way. Somebody could seem like they're being a schmendrick, but they're really doing something beneficial for you ultimately. And sometimes somebody could seem nice to you, and in actuality, maybe it's not. So it's
Leading you into a trap.
You can't always assume the worst, because like in this case, Joseph was doing probably something more beneficial for them.
Think about it, though. Joseph was having a hell of a time. I know who you are, but you don't know who I am.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think he was playing with them.
Yeah.
Well, of course he was.
Yeah, but they also wanted to see Benjamin.
Right.
He did. His brother.
Yeah, it's true. And he probably wanted to see his father, too. I mean, I can only imagine.
He knew his father wouldn't come without Benjamin. He wouldn't let Benjamin go without his being there.
Right, right.
But he was playing with them to
Jacob did
cover
not
up
come with
so
him,
he
no.
wouldn't be.
Jacob never
arrogant.
came.
But
Was
yeah,
Ben-
eventually, yeah, that's right. He didn't. But go ahead, Gary. What were you saying?
I'm saying that's part of why he put them through this. Ultimately, instead of bragging and saying, hi, everybody. Hey, guys, I recognize you. You threw me in the pit. Now here you are coming bowing down to me. But instead, he covered it up. He treated them like they were strangers
Right.
so that they could save face, you know?
Mm-hmm. Good point.
Maturity.
Right.
Right.
Holding back his own emotions.
Braca, would you like to pick it up at 23?
Yes. They did not know that Joseph understood, for the interpreter had been between them. He left them and wept. Then he came back to them, spoke to them, took Shimon from them, and bound him before their eyes.
Do you understand what's happening here? So I guess Joseph filled their bags with grain, but then also returned each one's silver into their own sacks. And so...
Right.
So now
He's
they're
going
afraid.
to accuse him of thievery.
Yeah, that's right. That's what they were afraid of, that he did this on purpose and they were going to get caught with this money.
Right.
Right. All right. I think you're back at it, Braca. Why don't you try again? Let's see if you can do it.
Okay. They then came to Jacob, their father, in the land of Canaan, and told him all that had befallen them, saying, the man who is Lord of the land spoke roughly to us. He treated us as though we were spying out the land. We said to him, we're honest men. We've never been spies. We're 12 brothers, the same. One is no more, and the youngest is with our father right now in the land of Canaan. That man, the Lord of the land, said to us, this is how I will know that you're honest. Leave one of your brothers with me. Take relief for the starvation of your families and go and bring your youngest brother to me. Then I will indeed know that you're not spies, that you're honest. I will give you back your brother and you can pass through the land. When they emptied their sacks, each one's money bag was in his sack. And when they caught sight of their money bags, they and their father, they were struck with fear. Their father Jacob said to them, you have left me bereft. Joseph is no more. Shimon is no more. And now you would take Benjamin from me. All these things have come down on me. Reuben then said to his father, put my 2 sons to death if I do not bring him back to you. Give him into my hands, and I will return him to you. But Jacob said, my son shall not go down with you. His brother is dead, and he alone remains. If a disaster should befall him on the way that you will be going, you would cause my gray head to go down in anguish to Sheol. The Hebrew says Sheolah. Sheol.
Hades. Sheol.
The famine more heavily on the land. When they had consumed the provisions they had brought from Egypt, their father said to them, go back and buy us a bit of food. But Judah said to him, the man adjured us most definitely, saying, you shall not see my face unless your brother is with you. If you're willing to let our brother go with us, we'll go down and buy food for you. But if you're not willing to let him go, we will not go down. The man said to us, you shall not see my face unless your brother is with you. Israel then said, why did you do me this wrong? Answering the man's question, have you yet another brother? They answered, the man questioned us closely about ourselves and our families, saying, is your father still alive? Do you have a brother? So we answered as required by these questions. How on earth could we have known that he would say, bring your brother down? Judah then said to his father Israel, let the lad go with me, and let us get up and be on our way, that we may live and not die, we ourselves and you and our little ones as well. I will be responsible for him. From my hand you may demand him, and if I do not bring him back to you and plant him in front of you, I shall stand condemned before you for all time. If we hadn't dallied, we could have returned twice by now. Their father Israel then said to them, if that's the way it must,
If that's the way it must
Israel
be.
said to them, if that's the way it must be, do this. Take from among the land's choice products in your bags and bring the man an offering, a bit of balm, a bit of honey, some some laudanum, mastic pistachios and almonds, and take double the silver with you, and hand over the silver that was returned to your bags. It may have been a mistake. Yes, take your brother, get going, and go back to the man. May El Shaddai give you mercy before that man, so that he lets you and your other brother and Benjamin go. And as for me, I am bereaved, I am bereaved. The man then took this offering, and taking in hand the double portion of silver, along with Benjamin, they got going and went down to Egypt and stood before Joseph. When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the one in charge of his household, "Bring the men into the house and slaughter an animal and prepare it, for these men are going to eat with me at noon." The man did as Joseph said. The man brought the men into Joseph's house. The men were frightened when they were brought into Joseph's house. They thought, "It is on account of the silver that came back in our bags the first time that we're being brought here in order to fall upon us, to pounce on us, to take us as slaves along with our assets." They therefore approached the man in charge of Joseph's household and spoke to him at the entrance of the house, saying, "By your leave, my lord, the last time we came down to buy food, when we got to the night lodging and opened our bags, each one's silver was in the mouth of his bag, the exact amount that had been weighed out, and we have brought it back with us. And we have brought other money to buy food. We don't know who put our silver in our bags." He replied, "You're all right, have no fear. Your God and your father's God has given you a hidden treasure in your bags. Your money reached me," and he brought Shimon out to them. The man then ushered the men into Joseph's house. He supplied water, and they washed their feet, and he gave fodder to their asses. They laid out the offering for the arrival of Joseph at noon, for they had heard that they would eat food there. When Joseph entered the house, they presented to him the offering they had brought into.
Okay, hang on one second. Maybe we can stop here for a second. This is woo woo woo. It's going so quick. It's amazing though. What a story. So much back and forth. I love the arguments at the house with Jacob. Now, is there a reason that all of a sudden Jacob is called Israel in the middle of this story?
That actually was going to be a comment that I was going to make, Mike.
Nice.
This particular section of the Bible here,
yeah.
Sometimes he's called Jacob and sometimes he's called Israel.
Right. Is there a reason? Is it because his faith or something? Or
well, theoretically, it should have been Israel from the time that his name was changed to Israel. Mm-hmm. And that's it.
Could have been written by two different people.
Right.
Absolutely.
Who was writing?
Yeah.
Exactly.
But isn't it the greatest, like the dialogue between the father and the sons? You guys, you're killing me. Why'd you give him this much information about us? Why'd you have to tell him we had a younger son? Why'd you do this? Oh, it's just incredible.
And the answer was, we needed to be truthful in front of the family.
Otherwise, we would have died.
Yeah.
What I find interesting, this whole time, they are assuming that their brother is dead.
Yes.
And yet they come in, like almost like they've shed that whole thing. That's gone. And now it's on to something else. They obviously had no clue. But the thing that disturbs me is almost like they just forgot him or tried to forget him because of what they
tried to forget because they're very guilty.
Yeah,
that's why their older brother said, "Look, no,
we lost.
You started this. I told you, don't do it."
But boy, they were scared when they found that money in there because they were sure they were going to be accused of stealing.
Oh, yeah.
But somebody had something more in store for them.
God did.
All right. It's such a great story. My goodness. Does anyone want to pick up where we left off? Dr. Mike or Gary? It's down here, number 26, when Joseph entered the house.
Sure. When Joseph entered the house, they presented to him the offering they had brought into the house.
Yep.
and they bowed down before him to the ground. He asked them how they were and said, "How is your aged father of whom you spoke? Is he still alive?" They said, "Your servant, our father, is well. He is still alive." And they knelt and bowed down. He looked up and saw his full brother Benjamin, his mother's son, and he said, "Is this your youngest brother you told me about?" And he added, "God be gracious to you, my son." Joseph hurried out, but he was so deeply stirred with tender warmth toward his brother that he wanted to weep. He went into an inner chamber, and there he wept. He washed his face, and when he came out, he held himself in check and said, "Serve food." They served them separately and then separately, and the Egyptians who usually ate with him separately, but the Egyptians could not eat food with the Hebrews, since it was an abomination to the Egyptians. And they were seated before him, the firstborn according to his seniority, and the youngest according to his youth. The men looked at each other in amazement. He presented portions of food to them from what was in front of him. Benjamin's portion exceeded all of theirs fivefold, and they drank and grew drunk with him. Afterward, he commanded the one in charge of his household, saying, "Fill the man's bag with food as much as they can carry, and put each man's silver in the mouth of his bag." And they put his goblet, the silver goblet, in the mouth of the youngest one's bag, along with the silver for his grain. He did just as Joseph instructed. At morning light, the men were sent off, they and their asses. They had left the city, but had not gone far, when Joseph said to one of them in charge of his household, "Get going, pursue the men. When you overtake them, say to them, 'Why did you repay good with evil? This is what my master drinks from, and with which we constantly practices divination. Have you not caused harm what you have just done?"
I think you have the same
I'm
issue
not
that Brock
losing you.
had. You were starting to
He
slow down.
overtook them and spoke all the words to them, and they said to him, "It from your servants to do such a thing."
I see Jordan Shapiro has joined us. Jordan, do you mind picking up number?
Sure. Number 8.
Why don't we go to 6, just so
6?
these words? Yeah.
Sure. Well, I knew Mike was going to be reading about drinking and getting drunk, so I thought I better come back and join this meeting. So that's why
Okay.
I'm here. No, actually, I had a Masonic meeting today, a finance committee today, and I wanted to be with the underground today. So I'm glad to be here. So he overtook them and spoke all these words to them. And they said to him, "Why is my Lord speaking such words? Far be it from your servants to do such a thing. Look, we brought you back the silver that we found in the mouth of your bags, all the way from the land of Canaan. Why would we steal silver or gold from your master's house? Let anyone caught with it among your servants die, and we, for our part, will become my Lord's slaves." He replied, "Yes, right away, just as you say, so shall it be. But while he who is caught with it shall be my slave, the rest of you shall be cleared." They hastened to lower their bags to the ground, and each opened his bags. He began searching with the eldest and ended with the youngest until he found the goblet in Benjamin's bag. They tore their mantles. Each then reloaded his ass, and they went back to the city. Judah and his brothers entered Joseph's house. He was still there. They fell to the ground before him. Joseph said to them, "What is this deed that you have done? Did you not know that a man like me constantly practices divination? Judah replied, what can we say to my Lord? How speak and how justify ourselves? God has found out the iniquity of your servants. Here we are, my Lord's slaves, both we and the one who was caught with the goblet in his possession. My goodness, they all need lawyers. But he said, far be it from me to do this. The man in whose possession the goblet was found, he shall be my slave, and the rest of you go up in peace to your father. Wow, that's impressive. That's it.
That's it. That's how it is.
Yeah, because you take it up with the other next week. Next week they could get the end of the story.
Can I
Oh,
ask what divination, what are they referring to? I'm kind of in the dark. What is that?
that's a really good.
That's how he interprets. Interpreter interprets the dreams. It's a divination.
He's like a soothsayer. Or a
Yes,
mystic.
What do you think, Doctor?
a soothsayer. He says sooths.
Dr. Michael, what do you think? I'm looking for the.
Doesn't the Torah say not to pay attention to soothsayers or?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, you're not supposed to. Okay, to divine something is to make a prediction, to foresee something that is coming.
A fortune teller.
That's what the word divination means.
Mhm.
But the thing is that basically these were coming from God, not from Joseph.
Mhm.
It was Joseph was interpreting it because God was telling him how to interpret it.
That's exactly right. He
There it
wasn't really, like a
He was the vessel.
charlatan. He was the real thing.
God was working.
Mhm.
Oh, okay, here we go. Who foretells events by
Right.
certain external
Fortune
signs, sounds, or movements. Okay, there you go. It's foretelling something.
Yeah.
Huh. And I mean, it sounds like it goes in by the practice of motion of wine in a special cup, this practice. Wow, I didn't know this at all.
It
This is-
depends. If they drink it first and they're drunk, they can divine anything.
Myrna.
Oh, Myrna, you're
There you
right.
go. Bravo.
Okay, it's like reading tea leaves.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
But
right.
there's no tea leaves on the bottom of this kid.
And Michael, and Michael, towards the right hand side, there's something about Jacob becomes Israel again. See what I want to say.
Oh, right.
Right.
Until now, Joseph's father has been referred to as Jacob, but in the segment of the tale, the text calls him by his other name, Israel.
Yeah.
He bestowed upon him after he had wrestled with the angel. And is this change due to a different tradition, as some would have it, or to the intent of the storyteller, who in this manner calls attention to a change that takes place in the soul of the patriarch? He knows that Joseph is already lost, and Simeon is languishing in a foreign prison. His fear of losing Benjamin is definitely powerful.
Oh, that's palpable.
Yeah.
Benjamin is since Joseph is gone, Benjamin is the only thing he has left of Rachel.
That's right. That's right.
How old would Benjamin have been at this time? Does anybody have a guess?
Wow.
Probably about 12.
Yeah, it had to be less than 30 because
Yeah, I know.
Joseph.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know how long they were gone. It's so hard. He obviously was born after Joseph was gone.
Right,
Yes.
because he was the youngest.
Yeah.
Hmm.
He's a baby.
And it's interesting. There's so much here to talk about because the brothers, they come back, and I think I counted 3 times when they went down and bowed down before Joseph.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, that's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
And he said they would, and they did.
Yeah. And then also, do you remember what Potiphar's wife said about Joseph when she was interacting with him, like when she actually blamed him and she had his coat or his tunic, and
Yeah,
he
in
said,
her hand.
"Look at, they brought a Hebrew, he brought a Hebrew, and he's toying with us. He came
Yeah.
to toy with us." And it's sort of same. I mean, Joseph, do you think he's toying with his brothers? I don't know. It's
Oh, well, no, he knows that eventually he's going to tell them the truth.
right.
But
But
right
he
now he's
doesn't.
kind of, yeah, he does. He's not ready to forgive them yet. He is and he isn't. He's kind of letting them stew.
He's got to get, I'm sure in some ways he's got to get his own back a little bit.
I think he just
I
wants.
mean,
his
after
youngest
what
brother with
they
him.
did to him.
I
Absolutely.
think he wants his youngest brother with him because that's his brother.
He
that he went
wanted
from
that.
Rachel.
He wanted Benjamin there.
Well, he knew that if Benjamin comes, the father's going to follow.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And
But-
what about their attitudes, right? So think about the brothers' attitudes right now, like what they're doing. They're going absolutely out of their minds.
They're out of their
They
minds.
promised everything they said to their father, no, we're going to take, Benjamin's going to be back here. We're going to,
They don't know what to do. They're so scared.
and then contrast that when they threw Joseph in the pit. How long ago? How many chapters back? When they were all big and mighty. And now it's like Joseph is taking them and just bringing them right down. You
Like
know?
I said, he's getting his own back.
He's toying with them and they aren't aware of it.
And I think he's trying to bring that.
He knows eventually he's going to tell them the truth.
Oh, yeah. After he makes them squirm a bit.
Absolutely.
But he also wants his father there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, eventually his father does come. They come in to settle in the land.
Right. Well, first of all, if Benjamin isn't there, father's going to go back and find Benjamin. He's not going to let him out of his sight any
Absolutely.
longer than he already has.
Right.
So it's a way of bringing everybody there without giving them reasons. It's kind of an interesting thought,
Oh, yeah.
You're playing with their minds. The other thing is, you're probably all looking at each other and saying, which stupid one of you took this stuff?
And put
What's
And put
going on here?
the goblet in Benjamin's bag. Yeah.
I know you all knew you weren't supposed to touch this.
Oh my gosh, that's a great
Who
point.
did that?
Well, one thought that has occurred to me in the past as I was reading this sort of thing is that, I can understand why he wanted to punish his brothers. Joseph wanted to punish his brothers. But when he forced his father to come into Egypt, his father must have been an old guy already, and he forced him.
And I do think that when Joseph was taken away, this did a number on him. It aged him faster.
Oh, absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So if you put it all together, Jacob or Israel was already an older man, but yet he had to travel all the way from Canaan to Egypt in order to comply to Joseph's request.
Right.
You know what I found interesting? Remember how they said that nobody eats with Joseph? Because
The Egyptians won't eat with him.
right. Because of what? Of the fact that he's up there and you're down there kind of thing?
No, I think it had to do with some
No.
dietary laws.
Well, this is what I wondered because
No, it's just that to them, the sheep was an idol. And we eat sheep.
Oh. Lamb. Okay. And it was one of their gods, right?
Yeah. It's several.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys notice the name that Joseph gave to his oldest son
Manasseh.
and what it means? That
they were not Egyptian names at all.
No.
Oh, really?
for
It says it.
troubles, so that he's out of the trauma.
I'm sorry, you're kind of breaking up, Brock.
Everybody's breaking up.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
little tough. I'm trying to get to the part where he names his sons Manasseh and Ephraim, right? Or Ephraim?
Yeah, Ephraim.
Ephraim. Where is that? That was early on.
Yes.
This is an amazing story. Let me see.
You know what I don't understand? Obviously, they're not Egyptian names, and yet there seems to be, they were accepted that way. I mean, you've got Potiphar's, was the daughter who married him.
Potiphar's daughter.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is definitely an intermarriage, but I don't see much of an objection. The other thing is, did Egyptians circumcise their sons?
Yes.
They did.
Did they?
Yeah, actually, that was the custom throughout the entire Middle East.
Really?
Yep.
So there was no problem in that kind of thing.
Nope.
How did you know that, Michael?
He knows
Well,
a lot.
you understand, I'm a Moyle.
My grandfather was.
And
First class.
isn't that part of Joseph's character too? Is that he's sort of in between Israel and in between Egypt. He kind of brings these two groups together. He's got 1 foot in Egypt, 1 foot in Israel, and in Jacob, you know, following Jacob's God. It's so interesting because then how he gets buried too. I don't want to jump ahead, but I am. But he
No,
gets.
we know he had.
Doesn't he get embalmed like an Egyptian?
Yeah, but he wants to be delivered back to his homeland.
Go back.
He came back. The bones came back. Joseph, they're all buried in the caves.
The cave, yeah.
Yeah.
But I do have Manasseh up on the screen. Manasseh.
Manasseh.
So it's God has made me forget, which is a word play. Others translate it all my troubles and all. So God has made me forget all my troubles in all my father's house. And then Ephraim is God has made me fruitful. Now, are these twins? I don't think they're twins, right? They're one in the next.
One's older than the other.
So Jordan, do you have another one of our Shabbos jokes for today?
You won't like this one, I think, but I'll tell you. So I took my little granddaughter to a new zoo, and it was a very small zoo. The only animal in the whole zoo was a dog. It was a Shih Tzu. And some of you are going to tell people that one, and some of them will never tell that one ever.
Right.
Happy Hanukkah to everybody.
Happy Hanukkah. Happy Hanukkah.
That's right. It's almost over.
Yes, it is. Yeah, 3 more days.